Welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. This week, a change of pace in our Venice episodes. In the Venice material, I was trying to draw all the folklore together, like I did with Cornwall, and I've decided that may be a fool's errand. I keep heading off into the weeds. That's why we now have the Pentamerone project, which seems to have gone on for about a year. My plan is to keep adding to the folklore I find, but to try and give the whole thing a spine and ribs by working toward a chapter layout that I'll assemble on the blog that accompanies the podcast. I'll Frankenstein bits in, create a rough shape, and then move into proper drafting, so time for a folklore-free episode. If you look at a map of Venice, the first thing you'll notice is that it looks like a sketch. Coastlines are smooth or straight and have angles, and this is because the coasts are in many cases artificial. As we noted in an earlier episode, the islands of the lagoons have been extended by reclamation using wood pylons and backfill. Many of the islands you see in modern maps were added after the game period, and a few have been lost over time, usually low islands destroyed by flooding. The largest island in the group by area is Venice proper. It's historically divided into 6 regions, called sestieri, 3 on each side of the Grand Canal. There is a single bridge across the Grand Canal in 1220, a pontoon sort of affair, called the Bridge of the Mint. It's called that because there is a coin mint nearby. By the Magenomia period, it's been renamed the Rialto Bridge and has been rebuilt in stone. The first 3 districts are Castello, which is the largest of the 6 divisions. This is where the arsenal is, and where the Greek merchants live. The site of the arsenal is now the Biennale Gardens. This is the seat of the Bishop of Olivolo, and when that's merged with the Patriarchate of Grado in the 15th century, this becomes the seat of the Patriarch of Venice. The second area is Cannaregio. This is the area where most people who are coming from the mainland land in Venice. It's named after the Canal Regio, the Royal Canal. After 1516, this is the area that contains the Jewish ghetto, but during the Ars Magica period, Jews are in an odd legal situation where they're not allowed to live in the city, but they do work in the city, and many of them live on an island called Giudecca, which is off the south coast of the island, but still part of the 6 divisions. It's complicated. This area, Cannaregio, has some palaces along the Grand Canal, but it's mostly a workers' area. The third area, San Marco, is where the public square is. Many of our earlier episodes have discussed buildings and festivals in San Marco. This is the social and political centre of Venice. Then across the Grand Canal are San Polo, the smallest of the 6 divisions, and the most densely inhabited, which is where the city's markets are. Dossoduro, which is administratively the area that also includes the island of Giudecca to the south. It's where the highest land in Venice is found, but I haven't found out a lot else about it yet. And Santa Croce, which in the Ars period seems technically to be the feudal possession of a Hungarian nobleman. Surely that can't be right. I'll need to track that down. Let's zoom out a little further. The Venetian lagoon is divided from the Adriatic by 2 barrier islands called Lido and Palestrina. Lido has a settlement on it called Malamocco, which is named after the Roman settlement that was on the same island, Matamalcum, and that settlement was taken by the sea. Palestrina's largest town is also called Palestrina. It's also worth noting that there's a small island called Chogia, which lies at the far south of the line created by the 2 barrier islands. It's a sort of custom station for ships coming into the lagoon. In some of the earlier episodes, we discussed Charlemagne's attempted invasion of Venice. It got as far as Chogia and Malamocco, which is why the capital was moved further into the lagoons, into the area which was then bolstered up to become Venice. The northern edge of the lagoons is guarded by a peninsula called Littoral del Calavino, but littoral there just means coast. The third largest island in the lagoons is Murano, which is actually 7 islands held together with bridges. In 1291, all the glassmakers in Venice are forced to relocate there, creating an odd noble class of merchants who make mirrors for a living, which we can surely use. By the way, this is the worst mistake I've made in terms of the history research that I did for any of the Ars Magica books, I was wrong about where Magi get their glass from. I'll fix it at some stage. Forest glass is fascinating. Murano glass doesn't exist yet. The second largest island is called Sant'Erasmo, and it's governed from Murano, and it's mostly farmland. Between Murano and Venice is a squarish island that's a cemetery in the modern day. Sadly, San Michele Cemetery dates from the 19th century. Before that, each of the courtyards around which Venetian neighbourhoods are gathered was a cemetery, apparently. San Michele was created when people decided it's unsanitary, particularly on islands which occasionally flood, to have all the dead bodies in the middle of the courtyard. As I mentioned, every so often an island goes missing. That could be a Magus, waiting for a storm and then casting the shrouded glen around the coast. The lagoon is such a busy shipping channel that people would still wander in accidentally sometimes. Although there are little crannies in the south of the lagoon where you'd get some privacy. The lagoon is only 23 feet deep at most, so if you want to make your own island, using the rules in Transforming Mythic Europe, this is a great spot. You could also put a new island in the rather less busy northern lagoons. Your saga may vary.